The calm before the storm. In the year 2079, on the distant edge of known space, lay a small Terran colony named New Haven. It was a peaceful place, nestled between rolling green hills and vast blue oceans. The sun shone brightly in the sky, casting a warm glow over the settlement, where humans lived simple yet fulfilling lives. They farmed the land, raised livestock, and built a tight-knit community. Laughter echoed through the streets, and children played freely, blissfully unaware of the dangers lurking beyond the stars. In the heart of New Haven, Captain Jenna Reyes stood on the balcony of her modest home, gazing out at the horizon. She had been the leader of the colony's defense force for several years, and she took her responsibilities seriously. As she watched the sun dip below the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, she felt a sense of calm. But deep down, she sensed that this peace would not last. In the nearby command center, a group of scouts monitored space traffic. Their instruments detected unusual movements from a distant star system. Jenna had heard rumors of a warlike alien race called the Valkyrie, known for their ruthlessness and advanced technology. They had been raiding settlements in nearby sectors, and whispers of their approach made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. "Captain, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Mark, a young officer with wide eyes and a serious demeanor. Jenna turned to him, feeling the tension in her stomach rise. "What have you found?" she asked, stepping into the command center. The room buzzed with activity, screens flashing data and images of distant ships. Mark pointed to a screen showing a cluster of ships moving rapidly toward New Haven. "Scouts have confirmed it's a Valkyrie fleet. They're headed our way." Jenna's heart sank. "How far out are they?" "Less than 2 days at their current speed. We need to warn the colony and prepare for a defense." Without hesitation, Jenna sprang into action. She gathered the defense force, a small but dedicated group of men and women who had trained for this moment. They gathered in the central square, the air thick with anxiety and fear. Jenna stood before them, her voice steady, aiming to instill courage in their hearts. "We face a great threat," she began. "The Valkyrie are coming, and they will not stop until they take what they want. But we are Terrans. We have fought against the odds before, and we will do it again. We must prepare to defend our home." The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement while others looked uncertain. Jenna understood their fears. She felt them too. But she believed in the strength of her people. They had built this colony from nothing, and they were not about to let it be taken away. In the days that followed, the colony sprang to life with activity. Men and women of all ages joined the defense force, working tirelessly to reinforce their homes and prepare for the impending attack. They gathered tools and weapons, crafting makeshift defenses from whatever materials they could find. Some built barricades, while others trained in hand-to-hand combat. Jenna spent long hours coordinating the efforts, her determination unwavering. She worked alongside the people, not just giving orders but joining them in the fields, gathering supplies, and training in the makeshift gymnasium. Her presence inspired them, and she could see their spirits lifting as they focused on the task at hand. Despite the urgency of their situation, there were moments of levity. Children still played in the streets, their laughter ringing out like music. Jenna often found herself smiling at their innocence. They were a reminder of what was at stake: their future, their dreams, their home. As night fell, Jenna stood again on her balcony, gazing at the stars. The vastness of space felt both beautiful and terrifying. She knew the Valkyrie were out there, plotting their attack. But for now, New Haven was safe, and her people were ready to fight for their lives. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared, cutting through the tranquility. Jenna's heart raced as she sprinted to the command center, her mind racing with possibilities. Had the Valkyrie arrived early? She burst through the door, finding the officers already at their stations. "Status report," she shouted. "Captain, we've detected a ship entering our atmosphere," one of the officers replied, eyes glued to the monitor. "It appears to be a scout vessel. It's sending a distress signal." "Prepare to establish contact," Jenna ordered. She felt a mix of hope and dread. This could be an opportunity to learn more about the intentions, or it could be a trap. As they made contact, a holographic image of an officer flickered to life in front of them. The alien's skin glistened under the light, a deep shade of green, with eyes that seemed to bore into Jenna's soul. "This is Commander of the Fleet." The alien spoke, its voice cold and commanding. "We have come to claim this territory. Submit now, and your lives will be spared." Jenna felt a surge of anger and determination. She had prepared for this moment, and she would not back down. "We are not afraid of you," she replied firmly. "We will defend our home." The commander's lips curled into a smile, but it was a cruel smile. "So be it. You have made your choice. Prepare for war." As the hologram flickered out, Jenna turned to her team, her resolve stronger than ever. The calm before the storm was over. Now the fight for New Haven had truly. The gathering storm. In the wake of Commander Ominous' declaration, tension hung heavily in the air of New Haven. The people felt a mix of fear and determination. Captain Jenna Reyes knew they had little time to prepare. The Valgari fleet, known for their ferocity, would not hesitate to attack. It was time to galvanize the colony into action. The following morning, Jenna gathered her defense force in the central square, where the makeshift command center buzzed with activity. The sounds of clanging metal and murmured conversations filled the space, but all eyes turned to her as she stepped onto a makeshift platform. "Today, we stand united," she began, her voice steady and firm. "They think we will submit without a fight. They believe they can take what is ours without consequence. But we will show them that humanity is not so easily broken." The crowd erupted into cheers, their spirits lifted by her words. Jenna could see the determination in their eyes, a fierce fire ignited by the prospect of defending their home. She continued, "We must be smart about our strategy. We know they outnumber us and have advanced technology. But we have something they do not, or will to fight for our families, our friends, and our way of life." Jenna outlined the plan for the defense. They would use the terrain to their advantage, setting up traps in the dense forests that surrounded New Haven. Each team would have specific tasks. Some would work on fortifying the colony's structures, while others would scout the perimeter for any signs of enemy movement. "Remember," she added, "we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for the future of humanity. We will show what it means to challenge us." As the crowd dispersed to prepare, Jenna felt a mix of pride and fear. She had rallied her people, but the weight of leadership pressed down on her shoulders. She knew the odds were stacked against them, and she could not shake the feeling that the coming days would be the toughest they had ever faced. With the plan set in motion, Jenna joined the team assigned to fortify the colony. They worked tirelessly, using every resource available to strengthen the buildings and set up barricades. Jenna moved alongside her fellow colonists, lifting heavy beams and securing walls. Sweat dripped from her brow, but she pushed through, driven by the knowledge that every moment counted. As dusk approached, they gathered for a brief respite. Sitting on the grass, surrounded by her friends and fellow defenders, Jenna felt a sense of camaraderie. Stories were shared, laughter echoed in the air, and for a moment, the fear of the impending battle faded. But deep inside, Jenna knew that this calm would be short-lived. Later that night, as the stars twinkled overhead, Jenna found herself unable to sleep. She stepped onto her balcony, gazing at the dark horizon. The calm of the night was deceptive, masking the storm that was coming. The ships were out there, lurking, waiting to strike. Suddenly, the silence shattered. The ground trembled as the alarm blared throughout the colony, sending waves of panic through the streets. Jenna's heart raced as she sprinted back to the command center. "Report," she shouted as she entered the room. "Multiple ships detected entering our atmosphere." An officer called out, frantically typing commands into the control panel. "They're deploying landing craft." "Sound the alarm. Get everyone to their positions," Jenna ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The time for preparation was over. The fight had begun. As the alarm blared, the people of New Haven sprang into action. Families hurried to the shelters, while the defense force took their positions, weapons ready and hearts pounding. Jenna felt a surge of adrenaline as she joined her team, preparing for the confrontation they had dreaded. From the command center, they monitored the enemy's movements on the screens. Dark shapes descended from the sky, silhouetted against the stars. The Valkyrie ships were massive and intimidating, their hulls glinting in the dim light. Jenna's stomach twisted as she realized the sheer scale of the invasion. "Captain, the Valkyrie are deploying ground troops," Mark said, his voice tense. "We need to prepare for the first wave." "Position the defenders near the eastern barricade," Jenna commanded. "We'll hold them there. Every second counts. We need to buy time for the civilians to get to safety." As the troops landed, Jenna could see their advanced armor and weapons glinting in the darkness. They moved with precision, a well-oiled machine ready to overwhelm any resistance. But she refused to let fear take hold. The people of New Haven had trained for this moment, and they would not go down without a fight. "Stay focused," Jenna shouted to her team. "Remember, we fight for our home, for our future." The first wave of charge toward the barricades, their battle cries echoing in the night. Jenna raised her weapon, ready to defend her colony. The air crackled with tension as they prepared to meet the enemy head-on. With the fate of New Haven hanging in the balance, the battle for survival had begun. The clash of titans. The battle erupted with a thunderous roar. Blasts of energy lit up the night as the defenders of New Haven opened fire. Jenna stood firm, her heart pounding in rhythm with the chaos around her. She could see the charging forward, their sleek, armored forms gliding effortlessly over the uneven terrain. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. They were here to conquer, but Jenna had no intention of letting that happen. "Focus fire on the front lines," Jenna shouted, her voice ringing out above the din. "Aim for their weak spots." Her team responded quickly, adjusting their sights and unleashing a barrage of energy bolts toward the advancing. Explosions erupted as the blasts found their targets, sending the enemy reeling. But they were relentless, regrouping and pressing forward despite their losses. Jenna could see their determination, a trait she knew all too well in her own people. As the clash intensified, Jenna moved with purpose, dodging incoming blasts and returning fire. The ground shook beneath her feet, and she could feel the heat of the battle engulfing her. Each shot fired was a testament to her resolve, a refusal to back down in the face of overwhelming odds. But the forces were fierce. They retaliated with deadly precision, their own weapons tearing through the defenders' ranks. The air filled with the acrid smell of burnt metal and the cries of the wounded. Jenna's stomach twisted with each sound, but she pressed on, refusing to let fear take hold. "Fall back to the second line," she called out to her team, sensing that the initial barricade would not hold much longer. The defenders moved as one, retreating to a more fortified position as they surged forward, their numbers overwhelming. Once they reached the second line, Jenna took a moment to assess the situation. They had set up additional defenses, including reinforced walls and makeshift barriers built from scavenged materials. This would be their last stand, and she had to make it count. "Prepare for another wave," she ordered, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We need to hold them off until the civilians are safe." The defenders took their positions, readying themselves for the next onslaught. Jenna could see the fear in their eyes, but she also saw determination. They were ready to fight for their home. They regrouped, their ranks swelling as more troops landed from the ships above. Jenna could see their commanders issuing orders, their bodies moving with practiced ease. It was clear that the enemy was adapting, learning from their previous mistakes. Jenna knew they had to act quickly. They couldn't let the Valkyrie gain the upper hand. "Mark, can you target their command ship?" Jenna asked, her mind racing with possibilities. "I'll try, but it's heavily shielded," he replied, fingers flying over the controls. If I can disrupt their communications, we might have a chance. Do it, Jenna shouted, determination igniting her spirit. If they could break the Valkyries' coordination, it would give the defenders the opportunity they needed. As Mark worked on the controls, Jenna focused on the front lines, ready to lead her team into the fray once more. The Valkyrie charged forward, their weapons blazing. Jenna's heart raced as she let loose another volley of fire. Her aim true. They had to hold the line. The clash of energy weapons echoed through the night, and the air vibrated with the sounds of battle. Every moment felt stretched, as if time itself was suspended in the chaos of war. Jenna's focus sharpened. She became a whirlwind of motion, dodging, shooting, and directing her team. Keep pushing them back, she yelled, rallying her defenders. We can't let them break through. As the Valkyrie forces surged forward, the defenders held firm, their spirits bolstered by Jenna's unwavering resolve. But the enemy was relentless. Just as Jenna began to feel a sense of control, a massive explosion rocked their position, throwing her off her feet. Dazed, she struggled to regain her bearings. The world spun around her, and she could hear the sounds of chaos, a mix of shouting, blaster fire, and the cries of the wounded. Panic began to creep in, but she fought it back, pushing herself to her feet. Mark, she shouted, looking for her friend. Status report. Systems failing. He yelled back, his voice strained. I need more time to get the targeting system back online. Keep at it. We need that command ship disabled. Jenna's voice was steadier than she felt. She had to keep her team motivated. They couldn't afford to lose hope now. Regaining her composure, Jenna rushed back to her position. The Valkyrie were pressing harder, their advance unyielding. She grabbed a weapon from a fallen defender and joined her team at the front lines. Together, they formed a wall of determination, ready to face whatever the Valkyrie threw at them. The tide of battle surged and fell, but Jenna knew that they couldn't hold out forever. They needed a breakthrough, a way to turn the tide in their favor. Just then, she spotted a group of Valkyrie troops moving to flank their position. Flankers, she yelled, raising her weapon. To the left. Cover fire now. The defenders rallied once more, redirecting their fire towards the encroaching enemy. Blasts of energy lit up the darkness as they fought tooth and nail to protect their home. With every shot fired, Jenna felt a surge of defiance. They would not submit. They would not be conquered. Together, they would stand against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. And as the clash of titans raged on, Jenna made a silent vow. They would fight until their last breath, and they would make the Valkyrie regret ever stepping foot in Terran space. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. The heart of humanity was stronger than any weapon. The battle raged on, each second stretching into eternity. The Valkyrie forces pressed relentlessly against the defenders of New Haven, but the Terran spirit held strong. Jenna, now at the forefront of the fight, could feel the adrenaline surging through her veins. She was determined to turn the tide. Mark, she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. How's it going with that command ship? I'm almost there. Mark yelled back, sweat glistening on his forehead as he worked feverishly at the control panel. Just a few more seconds. The Valkyrie seemed to sense the pressure mounting. Their attacks intensified, waves of energy blasts raining down upon the defenders. Jenna ducked behind a barricade, her heart pounding as she watched a nearby teammate go down, hit by an enemy shot. No, Jenna gasped, her resolve hardening. They couldn't afford to lose anyone else. She peeked over the barricade, her eyes locking onto the advancing Valkyrie. They were closing in. Everyone, listen up, Jenna shouted, her voice rising above the sounds of battle. We need to hold this line. Stay focused and keep firing. Her words were met with determined nods, and Jenna felt a rush of pride for her team. They were terrified, but they were also fierce and brave. Together, they would face the storm. Here they come, a defender yelled as a group of Valkyrie soldiers charged, weapons raised. Without hesitation, Jenna squeezed the trigger, firing a steady stream of energy bolts at the enemy. Her shots found their mark, taking down the front line of attackers. "Mark, now," she shouted, hoping he had managed to regain control of their targeting system. "I'm locking onto the command ship," Mark replied, his voice trained but determined. Just a few more seconds. Jenna felt her heart race. This was the moment they had been waiting for. If they could disrupt the Valkyries' coordination, it might just turn the tide of battle in their favor. "Keep pushing them back," she called to her team, urging them to hold the line. "We need to give Mark the time he needs." The defenders rallied, their determination renewed. They unleashed a hail of energy fire on the approaching Valkyrie. Explosions erupted around them, and Jenna felt the ground tremble beneath her feet as they fought with everything they had. Suddenly, a burst of static crackled through the comms, followed by Mark's excited shout. "I got it. Firing now." Jenna held her breath as she watched Mark's console light up, a brilliant beam of energy shooting forth toward the Valkyrie command ship. Time seemed to slow as the beam streaked through the air, illuminating the battlefield with a bright glow. The energy bolt struck the command ship dead center. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the Valkyrie ranks, causing chaos as their coordination faltered. The command ship listed to one side, and Jenna could see Valkyrie soldiers scrambling in disarray. "Now's our chance," Jenna yelled, adrenaline fueling her every word. "Push forward." With a renewed sense of hope, the defenders charged, rallying around Jenna's voice. They surged forward, breaking through the Valkyrie lines, taking advantage of the chaos created by the damaged command ship. "Keep moving. Don't let up," Jenna urged as they pressed onward. The Valkyrie were reeling, their formations breaking apart as Jenna's team advanced. For the first time, the defenders felt they had a chance to turn the tide. As they fought their way closer to the command ship, Jenna felt a surge of determination. They could win this battle. They could reclaim their home. The Valkyrie would learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Mark, can you target their main forces now?" Jenna asked, her heart racing. "I'm on it," Mark replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "Just give me a moment to get the systems back online." Jenna took a quick glance back at the command ship, now in chaos. If they could just disrupt the Valkyrie's command structure, they could shatter the enemy's morale completely. The defenders continued their push, but it wasn't without cost. Jenna could see her teammates getting hit, one by one. Each loss weighed heavily on her heart, but she refused to falter. They were fighting for their lives, for their families, for the very future of humanity. "Fall back to the second line. We'll regroup and strike again," Jenna commanded, sensing that they needed to reevaluate their strategy. The last thing they needed was to lose all momentum. As they fell back, Jenna noticed something out of the corner of her eye. A small squad of Valkyrie soldiers was sneaking around the side, trying to flank them. "Watch out. We have flankers," she shouted, her heart racing as she moved to intercept. The defenders quickly turned, their weapons raised. "Take them down," Jenna ordered, leading the charge against the flanking squad. They fired in unison, cutting down the enemy before they could break through. "Nice work, team," Jenna shouted, adrenaline surging through her once more. "Now let's regroup and prepare for the next wave." With Mark's targeting system finally back online, the defenders gathered themselves. Jenna felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, but she also felt hope. They had fought valiantly, and they had the momentum now. "Get ready," Jenna called to her team. "This next attack will be the one that turns the tide for us." As the Valkyrie forces regrouped, Jenna could see the fear beginning to spread among them. They were not the only ones who could adapt. Humans had proven time and time again that they were capable of fighting back against insurmountable odds. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, Jenna felt a flicker of hope in her heart. They would not submit. They would not be broken. Together, They would stand tall and defy the darkness that sought to consume them. The rallying call. With the defenders regrouped behind the makeshift barricades, a moment of tense silence fell over the battlefield. The sounds of the ongoing conflict faded into the background as Jenna surveyed her team. Each member wore a mix of determination and exhaustion, their faces smeared with dirt and sweat, but the fire in their eyes burned brighter than ever. "Listen up, everyone," Jenna called, her voice ringing out over the din. "We've made it this far, and we're not backing down now. We've faced them head-on, and they're starting to falter. We need to show them that humanity will never surrender." Cheers erupted from the defenders, a chorus of hope echoing through the chaos. Jenna felt a surge of pride as she looked at her team. They had fought bravely, and now, with renewed purpose, they were ready to take the fight back to the Valkyrie. Mark, still at the controls, glanced up with a determined expression. "I've rerouted our energy reserves to boost our weapon systems. We can hit harder this time." "Good work, Mark," Jenna replied, feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Let's show them what we're made of." The moment the Valkyrie forces began to regroup, Jenna raised her weapon and shouted, "Prepare to advance." The defenders readied themselves, weapons aimed at the enemy ranks that were starting to form once more. As the order was given, Jenna led the charge. They surged forward, energy weapons blazing. The first shots found their marks, cutting through the Valkyrie lines and sending enemy soldiers tumbling to the ground. The defenders moved as one, their spirits lifted by the momentum they had gained. "Keep moving," Jenna yelled, weaving through the battlefield. "Push them back. Don't let them regroup." The Valkyrie, caught off guard by the ferocity of the Terran counterattack, began to retreat. Jenna could see their ranks breaking apart, their soldiers losing cohesion as panic spread. The sight invigorated her team, fueling their resolve. "Mark, can you target their reinforcements?" Jenna shouted, not taking her eyes off the enemy lines. "I'm on it," Mark replied, fingers flying over the control panel. Just a moment. With each step they took, the defenders pressed on. Driven by a mix of fear and hope, Jenna could feel the tide of battle shifting. The Valkyrie had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were about to pay the price. "Don't let up," Jenna urged, firing at an enemy soldier who was trying to flank them. "We need to push them into retreat." The battlefield was a chaotic swirl of energy blasts and the sounds of clashing armor. Jenna kept her focus sharp, her eyes scanning for threats as her team advanced. The Valkyrie were beginning to falter, their formation crumbling under the pressure. "Now, Mark," Jenna shouted as they reached the heart of the enemy lines. "Fire." Mark hit the button, and a powerful beam of energy shot forth from their makeshift cannon. It tore through the Valkyrie reinforcements, sending shockwaves through their ranks. The explosion echoed across the battlefield, and Jenna felt a thrill of victory surge through her. "Keep pushing," she called, urging her team onward. They could taste victory, and it felt electrifying. But then, Jenna noticed something that made her heart sink. A massive Valkyrie warship loomed in the sky, its weapons charging up. It was unlike anything they had faced before, and Jenna knew they needed to act quickly. "Everyone, fall back," she shouted, panic creeping into her voice. "We need to regroup. That ship is too powerful." The defenders hesitated for a moment, but the urgency in Jenna's voice broke through their determination. They began to fall back, ducking behind cover as the warship unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. The ground shook beneath them, and Jenna felt a sense of dread. "Mark, we can't let that ship destroy us," Jenna yelled. "Do we have any weapons capable of hitting it?" "I'll see what I can do," Mark replied, frantically working at his controls. As the warship fired again, Jenna took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly. They needed a plan. "Listen up. We need to distract that ship while Mark figures out how to target it. We'll create a diversion." The tide turns. The battlefield was alive with chaos as the Valkyrie warship, faltered under the relentless assault from the Terran defenders. The air crackled with energy blasts, and the ground shook with the force of detonations. Jenna felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, fueling her determination as she pressed the attack. "Keep firing," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We have to break through their defenses." The defenders rallied around her, their spirits lifted by the sight of the Valkyrie warship struggling to stay operational. Mark, at the control panel, was working furiously, recalibrating their weapon systems for maximum impact. "Jenna, if we can disable their main power source, we might be able to take the ship down for good," he called, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Then let's do it," Jenna replied, her heart racing with excitement. "We'll aim for the power core." The defenders shifted their focus, adjusting their aim as Jenna led the charge. "Fire at will. Let's make them pay for underestimating us." Energy bolts zipped through the air, striking the warship with precision. The Valkyrie crew scrambled to respond, but they were disorganized, struggling to regain their footing. Jenna could see fear creeping into their ranks, and she knew this was their chance. "Move in closer," she commanded, leading the team forward. The gap between them and the warship narrowed as they pressed on, determination etched on their faces. With every step, Jenna felt a surge of confidence. They had fought too hard to back down now. "Stay sharp. Watch for enemy reinforcements," she warned, her eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of danger. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from above. Jenna looked up just in time to see another Valkyrie cruiser descending from the sky. It was larger and more imposing than the first, and its arrival sent a wave of dread through her team. "Everyone, take cover," Jenna shouted, adrenaline surging as she instinctively dropped to the ground. The new cruiser began to unleash a barrage of fire, targeting the defenders who had gathered in the open. As explosions rocked the ground around them, Jenna's mind raced. "We can't let this ship turn the tide against us," she thought, scrambling to her feet. "We need a plan." Mark glanced at her, fear flashing in his eyes. "Jenna, we're outnumbered. If we don't retreat now, we could be wiped out." "No, we've come too far to turn back," Jenna replied, resolute. "We fight for our people. We fight for Earth." Rallying her team, Jenna devised a new strategy. "We need to draw the fire of that cruiser away from our main forces. If we can create a diversion, Mark can take out its weapon systems." "But how?" one of the defenders asked, concern etched on his face. "We'll split into two groups," Jenna explained, her mind racing with possibilities. "Group A will keep the cruiser focused on them, while Group B will flank it and target its weapons. It's risky, but it might be our only chance." The defenders exchanged determined glances, nodding in agreement. "Let's do it," they shouted in unison, ignited by the thought of taking the fight to their enemy. "All right. Group A, follow me," Jenna commanded. "Group B, stay low and move to the right flank. We'll create the distraction." As the teams moved into position, Jenna felt a rush of adrenaline. She led her group straight toward the cruiser, firing her weapon at the towering ship. The energy beams struck the hull, causing sparks to fly and smoke to billow. "Over here, you tin cans," Jenna shouted, waving her arms to draw attention. The cruiser turned its weapons toward them, and Jenna felt a sense of exhilaration mixed with fear. "Now, Group B, go, go, go," she yelled, knowing that their window of opportunity was closing fast. The defenders on the flank moved quickly, darting behind cover and circling around to target the cruiser's weapon systems. Jenna could see them getting into position, and her heart raced with anticipation. Suddenly, the cruiser fired, energy beams slicing through the air. Jenna and her group dove for cover just in time, narrowly avoiding the devastating blast. "Keep moving," Jenna urged her team. "We can't let up now." Meanwhile, Mark worked furiously, adjusting their targeting systems for maximum effectiveness. "I've got a lock on its weapon systems," he shouted, his eyes wide with determination. ready to fire. "Do it," Jenna commanded, her voice steadied despite the chaos surrounding them. With a surge of power, their cannon unleashed a focused energy blast that struck the cruiser's weapons array. Explosions erupted, and the ship shuddered under the impact. Jenna felt a wave of exhilaration wash over her as the Valkyrie cruiser began to lose control. "Keep firing. We can take it down," she yelled, watching as the enemy's defenses crumbled. The Valkyrie crew scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. The Terran defenders were relentless, their spirits high as they pressed the attack. "Let's finish this," Jenna shouted, leading her team forward as they pushed against the last of the Valkyrie defenses. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal, but the tide had turned. As they closed in on the cruiser, Jenna felt a sense of triumph. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Humanity was not to be underestimated, and today they would prove that to the galaxy. "Onward," she cried, charging forward with her team, ready to deliver the final blow. Together, they would show the Valkyrie that they had picked the wrong fight. Together, they would secure their place in the stars. The dawn of victory. The remnants of the battlefield lay scattered around as Jenna and her team pressed onward, determination etched on their faces. The once terrifying Valkyrie cruiser now burned in the distance, smoke curling into the sky like a dark banner of defeat. They had fought hard, and the tide had truly turned in their favor. "Keep moving. We need to secure the area before more reinforcements arrive," Jenna commanded, her voice carrying over the crackling sounds of the smoldering wreckage. The defenders had pushed through the chaos, and now they had the upper hand. As they approached the wreck of the Valkyrie cruiser, Jenna felt a rush of adrenaline. The enemy ship was heavily damaged, its once mighty frame reduced to a shadow of its former self. The crew members who had once looked down upon the Terrans were now scrambling, their faces twisted in panic as they tried to escape. "Check for survivors," Jenna ordered. "We need to know if anyone is still alive and if they can provide information." The defenders fanned out, weapons at the ready. Jenna stayed close to Mark, who was analyzing the ship's systems. "It looks like they're losing power rapidly. If we can access their control room, we might find something useful," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Let's do it," Jenna replied, her heart pounding with excitement. They moved cautiously toward the cruiser, every step echoing in the eerie silence that followed the fierce battle. Once inside, the sight was overwhelming. The interior was dark, flickering lights casting long shadows on the walls. The air was thick with the smell of burnt metal and something acrid that stung Jenna's nostrils. She could see the Valkyrie crew members scattered about, some attempting to flee, while others lay injured on the ground. "Secure the area," Jenna shouted. The defenders moved quickly, rounding up the remaining Valkyrie soldiers and ensuring they were no longer a threat. As they reached the control room, Jenna felt a surge of triumph. The console hummed with residual energy, and Mark quickly moved to access it. "I can't believe we actually did it," he said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "This is just the beginning," Jenna replied, her gaze fixed on the screen as it flickered to life. Lines of code scrolled rapidly, revealing vital information about the Valkyrie fleet. "What do you see?" Jenna asked, leaning closer. Mark's fingers danced over the controls. "Looks like they were planning another offensive. They intended to attack Earth directly." He paused, his expression turning serious. "We need to warn Command. If they know what's coming, they can prepare." Jenna nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "Let's download everything we can and transmit it back home," she said. "Our people need to know what they're up against." As Mark worked to gather the data, the defenders kept watch, ensuring that no Valkyrie would disrupt their mission. Jenna felt a mix of emotions: fear, determination, and a strange sense of pride. They had come so far, facing overwhelming odds, and now they had a chance to change the course of the battle for their home. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the ship, piercing the heavy silence. "What's happening?" Jenna asked, glancing at Mark, who was frantically trying to silence the alarm. "It's a self-destruct sequence. They must be trying to erase their technology," Mark shouted, panic rising in his voice. "We have to hurry. Download everything. We'll get what we can and get out," Jenna urged. The atmosphere in the control room shifted from triumph to urgency, the reality of their situation crashing down around them. Mark worked quickly, the screen flashing as he transferred data. Jenna could hear the sounds of Valkyrie troops regrouping outside. They were becoming aware of the Terran's success, and they would not let them escape easily. "Almost done," Mark exclaimed, his eyes darting between the screen and the door. "Just a few more seconds." Jenna's heart raced as she listened to the commotion outside. The Valkyrie were regrouping, and they would soon realize that the Terrans had gained the upper hand. "We can't stay here," she shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "We need to move." Just then, the screen flashed a final message. "Data transfer complete." Mark grinned and slammed his hand on the console. "Let's go." The pair dashed from the control room, urging their fellow defenders to fall back. "We have the data. Let's move," Jenna shouted, her voice ringing with determination. As they navigated the darkened corridors of the cruiser, the air grew thick with tension. The sounds of Valkyrie voices echoed around them, their anger palpable as they searched for the Terran intruders. "Over here." Jenna pointed to an emergency exit leading outside. They raced towards it, adrenaline propelling them forward. The self-destruct countdown had already begun, and they could feel the ground tremble beneath their feet. They burst through the exit just as the cruiser erupted in a massive explosion behind them. A shockwave knocked them off their feet, and Jenna felt a rush of heat as the flames lit up the night sky. "Get up. We need to get to the drop zone," she urged, helping Mark to his feet. The defenders regrouped, huddling together as they made their way back to their own ship, their hearts racing with the thrill of survival. Once aboard their vessel, Jenna turned to the crew. "We did it. We took down a Valkyrie cruiser and secured crucial data. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting back." Cheers erupted in the ship as the reality of their victory sank in. They had faced the odds and emerged victorious, proving that humanity was not to be underestimated. As they prepared to launch back into space, Jenna couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. This was just the beginning of their fight. They would show the galaxy that Terrans were fierce warriors, capable of standing their ground against any threat. And as the stars twinkled outside the viewport, Jenna knew they would not back down. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their resolve to protect their home. The dawn of victory had begun, and humanity's story was far from over.